Welcome back, everyone. Scarland here, bringing you a new Wolcen video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Exploding Mage build. This is insane DPS by far. I haven't seen anything higher than this. This might actually rival the Bleeding Edge post-patch, pre-patch, whatever. Definitely pre-patch. I've already hit for 44 million, so I'll bring that up on the screen here later. It's just a crazy build. You do so much DPS with this setup. However, this is very niche related. It's going to take you a lot of time to build this kind of character on the live servers. You need good stat rolls, but more importantly, you need two very specific gear pieces, two unique pieces to make this all entwined. I expect this is going to get nerfed just like Bleeding Edge did get nerfed. The belt is the most important. So we're going to jump into the statistics. We'll go over the spells. We'll go over the passives, we'll do the gear, and then there will be a map demonstration at the end as always. So remember guys, join the Discord. The JSON files will be in the Discord for anyone that wants to test this build themselves on the offline servers. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hopefully you enjoy this character. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the attributes and our overall statistics here. So you want a decent HP. We've dumped most of our attributes into toughness for our HP. You can make this up with gear rolls as well. It depends on how lucky you get and your RNG is on gear rolls. We've put our secondary points into wisdom because we do need that element chance. You can boost this in the passives. However, this setup that I'm currently running right now is disgusting, so I don't want to mess with any of the passives. But you can take the 60% element chance node. We're actually not taking that here. And then you want to dump a couple points into ferocity. Now you're going to see here that it says that my spell critical is only 20%. But if you look at our spells, you're going to see that like Plague Burst here actually has a critical chance of 53%. For whatever reason, the tiers is lower at only 25%. Our Solar Flare actually has... Does it not say? Our Solar Flare critical chance? It should. 50% for our Solar Flare as well. And then also our Anomaly is 50% critical chance hit. And then our Bleeding Edge, which is our Rage Dump. Again, we're not using Bleeding Edge here for damage, but it is a 56% chance. So we have very high crit, and that's all because of the breastplate, which we'll talk about when we get into the gear. Now, our damage and our survivability, of course, is we're using resistance and block. So my block chance right now is 90%. However, if I do hit my shout, it should go to 100% with 24% block efficiency. So basically you have a couple seconds of 100%, and that's of course with the tenant points and the 4 shield points. This is gonna go down as you're taking damage, but that's okay because you should be nuking everything before it even gets to you. If we look at our resistance, we're at 63%, 61%, and 58%. These can be boosted higher depending on your rolls on your gear. I'm pretty satisfied with what my rolls are right now, but you can get higher if you desire. Our DOT damage, poison's almost 9,000 a hit. Same with bleed, burn, shock. So it's pretty solid as far as that goes. We're actually not even spec'd into any life steal or spell still. We're solely relying on our block chance, nuking the enemies as fast as well as your HP pool. So that's pretty much all with the attributes. You want to try to get your rolls where you don't need as much ferocity or wisdom. You want to get some HP up here, guys. So that pretty much ties it up for the attributes, so we'll go ahead and move on. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the spells and the rotation that we're going to be using. Now, the Exploding Mage is basically spawning a bunch of health globes, and it's then exploding those health globes on the mobs, and it's just doing so much damage that it's absolutely insane. So you want to go for explosive damage. So we are using Plague Burst, and the runes are going to be increase the area of effect. The smog is just bonus DOT damage after you actually kill everything. We're going to be using the critical chance here. So like I said before, our critical chance is 53%. This is always going to be critting for the most part. I know it's 50-50, but it pretty much always crits. So this is a chance for explosions to drop a health globe, so you're just spawning more health globes. Health globes are, you know, going to save you, basically, since you have no life still. Not only are you going to use those health globes to explode onto the enemies, but you're also going to pick up a couple health globes just to maintain your HP. We have the Pestilence here, so increased chance to inflict elements on enemies. And then finally, we do have increased explosion damage for each element stack on a monster. So keep in mind that every single monster can have 30 total stacks of every element. So, I mean, you guys can do the math here. So the explosive damage just keeps adding and adding and adding, and it's insane. So again, like I said, we have 53% crit on here. Let's move into tiers. Now, tiers is going to be spreading the health globes. We're mainly using this for the health globe spawn rate, not necessarily the damage. So we are going to take the cooldown. We're going to take the critical chance score, which this is, the critical is a little low on tiers, but that's okay, because like I explained, we're not taking this for the damage. We're taking this to spawn as many health globes as possible. We're going to take the frost into fire, because we want the fire damage. We're going to take the DOT version of this, not the direct damage. We want the DOT damage. We're going to increase the critical damage, which you don't really need this, but I mean, there's nothing really else that you can take with the 1 point. I mean, you could lower the willpower if you choose. That's completely up to you. We could actually boost our element chance score here. So this 1 point can go anywhere, wherever you want it. And then finally, reduce the cooldown again. Next is our Solar Flare, and again, we're not really looking for the actual raw damage from this, but with our passives, you need to use Solar Flare as sacred damage, because we are going to be taking that passive node that one-shots enemies once you get them down to 15%, which is huge, not only for boss battles, but when you're doing the Untainted. As soon as you get that Untainted to 15%, he dies instantly. So 15% of, 58 million... is a good hunk of damage. It's actually insane, so that's why that passive node is so important, and I'll explain that more when we get to the passive section. So our Solar Flare here is we're going to take the damage dealt by the area increases over time. We're taking the increased tick rate, creates a Nova when dealing critical damage. I mean, our critical damage is, or our critical chance is 50%. This is always going to be critting for the most part, so now you all actually cause another explosion every time it crits. Increased critical damage. This is the important one here, is that you want it to maintain statically, so you don't want to drag Solar Flare around. Wherever you cast it, you want it to stay. And then finally, reduces the initial cast time, so you can, kind of spam it. It has a cooldown of 4.1. So this is not only another source of health globe spawn rate, because it's going to be fast, but also the 15% is huge. Once you get any enemy down to 15%, they die instantly with sacred damage. It's insane. So you have your health globes are going to spawn off your tiers. Your health globes are going to spawn off your Solar Flare. Now this is what ties the whole build together, of course, is Anomaly. So again, we have 50% crit chance on Anomaly. We're going to take the increase area of effect. We're going to take the increase the vortex duration. And this is the important stuff here. So the skill pulls vortex in. So it's going to pull the enemies into the vortex multiple times. So you can cast 2 of them. And then this is the whole bread and butter right here. This ability, it's globes pulled into the damage, or globes pulled into the vortex explode. And it's absolutely insane. So you're going to spawn a bunch of health globes with tiers, Solar Flare. You're going to pop your Anomaly to grab all of the globes that you've spawned, pull them into those group of enemies, and just absolutely slaughter everything. It's insane. Now finally, you do need Shout. So Sovereign Shout, which means you're going to have to be using a dagger or a sword or an axe. So our shout here is increase the chance of health globes, basically. So this is a 6% chance, and you'll see when we get into the passives that there's also a passive that gives you a 4% chance. So you're overall going to have a 10% chance of spawning health globes, and it's insane. It actually spawns so many that it's insane. The whole build is actually beyond broken, and I can see them nerfing a lot of things even further. So we'll have some fun with this until they break it, I guess. Grants a temporary block chance, which I showed you. My 90% block goes to 100%. We're going to increase the duration of buffs, so it just lasts a little longer. Increase rage generation per enemy. You don't necessarily need this, but there's nothing really else that you can take. I mean, if you want to play around with it, I mean, you can get the resistance one here to boost our resistance even more, because we don't need the rage, right? We're using bleeding edge as our rage dump to go back into willpower. So if you want to get the resistance, that's up to you. Temporary crit buff. Increase the effectiveness of all this. And then finally, the life leech. So these are all the statistics we're getting here. 25% crit chance, 7% global life leech. We're not taking life leech in any of the passive nodes, but we do gain 7% when we have our shout up. 15% to resistance, 20% spell casting, 20% attack speed, and then the important thing here is the 6% health globe. Now, bleeding edge was nerfed as far as damage goes, but again, if you watched my previous mage video, I don't use this for damage. We're not using bleeding edge for damage. We're essentially using it to balance our willpower and rage. When I show you the spell rotation, you'll understand. So here's the runes for it. I mean, it doesn't matter. Increased bleed chance, increased projectile speed, life leech also from bleeding edge. We're going to get increased damage per element stack. The axe follows you, and critical chance. Like I said, these really don't matter. These are just the runes that work right now. It has 56% crit chance. Now let's talk about elements and the stacking, because you are, of course, using the element system to stack damage. So we do have poison coming from Plague Burst. We have shock and fire. So shock and burn is coming from our tiers. We're actually gaining the shock from a socketed gem in our weapon. Now again, Solar Flare, we have weakness, which is sacred damage. Anomaly is giving us our stasis. And then Bleeding Edge is giving stasis and bleed. So we're missing curse, right? We have no source of curse damage. Well, we're going to talk about that when I show you guys the gear. Because the gear is the most important thing. If you don't have specific items for this entire build won't work. So let's go ahead and move along. Those are the spells. I will show you the rotation though. So basically, when you grab a whole pack of mobs, you want to go ahead, cast your shout, cast your plague burst, cast your tears, cast your solar flare. You should have a bunch of health globes spawning. Cast your anomaly. All the mobs will get pulled into there. Maintain your shout. Make sure you're casting bleeding edge to dump your rage into willpower. You can see the rage going back into willpower, and then just simply rinse and repeat. Now, the bread and butter of this is that you need as many mobs as you can. The more mobs you have on your screen, the more damage you're going to do. So this build definitely suffers for single target. So when you're doing Expedition 187 and Untainted, when you know that you're going to get ready to spawn the final boss at the end, you want to try to manage and drag as many trash mobs with you as possible, because single target is subpar. You can still do it single target, however, all of that damage is AoE damage, and you want as many trash mobs just to add on to that boss damage. So you can do it single target. I've done it many times single target already, but you definitely want to focus on dragging as many trash mobs along the map with you as you can. So even if you have champions or specialist enemies, drag them all to the boss. Everything goes to the boss. You should have enough survivability that you can stand there, get your rotation off, dodge around, and kill everything. Your main objective is, especially when you're at the final boss, is to get that final boss to 15%. Once you get him to 15%, you're going to instantly one-shot him with the passives that we have with Solar Flare. So like I said, basically rotation is grab as many mobs as you can. Make sure you have Shout up, get your Plague Burst down. There's your globe generation. Wait for globes to spawn. Double anomaly, all while maintaining your rage. Get your bleeding edge going. There's another shout. Get your plague burst down. Rinse and repeat, guys. Solar flare. Now you should have globes spawning. Double anomaly to pull everything together. And it's easy, but it's not easy. It's going to take skill. It's going to take practice. It's not like the pre-patch bleeding edge builds where all you had to do was cast bleeding edge and run around the map and everything's dead. This does take skill. It's going to take coordination. It's going to take time for you to get the hang of it, learn it, and then apply it. So let's go ahead and move on. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the passives. Now, if anyone out there wants to do some theory crafting and try to condense this and find an actual better path, join my Discord and let me know. Post a screenshot of a better path. This is what I've come up with right now. But I mean, unfortunately, to get over here, we're wasting a lot of points to get here. I believe it's the same amount, even if you come down through this way. So I don't think there's anything, like if you rotate the wheels and you have to have everything on here. This is essential. This is obviously level 90. This is endgame material. This is something that you're striving for. And this does have the +1 passive from the dark market or the productivity, whatever you would like to call that place. So this is a full endgame build. A lot of people aren't even going to get here, obviously. The amount of grinding it takes to get to level 90 is insane. But this, again, I'm providing endgame builds for what you should strive for. So if anyone can come up with like a better rotation to still get everything you need in here, because like I said, we can actually get this a little more juicier if we weren't wasting a couple of these points to go around the will, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. I mean, we're taking crit damage. We're going to start with red. We're taking crit damage, crit damage, crit damage, and then crit damage. And then we're going to come down into here for spell cost, element damage, element damage. We're going to go over here for element chance score, maximum element stacks, and then we're going to take the 2 element stacks inflicted. On this side, we have Immortal Offering, which is very important. We have additional elements, so now all your spells can of course apply 2, which is also very important. We break off and come down to Occult Affliction, so every element that you're casting is now going to boost that damage even further. We're going to come over here and take Acute Tracking, which I've been using Acute Tracking for now. It's basically just 60% overall damage increase. You get a Cold-Blooded every 2 seconds up to a maximum of 10 as long as you're in combat. So most of the time, you're not even going to get full damage potential from this, except like boss encounters, because you're not going to get all 10 stacks. You're going to be killing stuff so quickly. This is more attuned for those longer battles. So we break off, come down here, and then we're going to come down here. This was obviously nerfed. It was 100%. They nerfed it down to 60%. However, it's still worthwhile of taking. We're going to come up into the red now. Path up to this way to get some more HP. Here's the important node that I was talking about. The 4% health globe generation. You have to have this. It gives you an overall 10%. We're going to path up into the block chance. Any weapon can now block. We're going to grab the efficiency while we're here. Then, of course, we're going to break up to the green, get our branded burst, which is the tenant points. This is 100% damage reduction, and then it goes down 20% every hit you take. So you're going to always start with 100%. Every hit you take, it's going to slowly decrease. Then we're going to come down here. Now, this is an optional one that I've more recently been taking. If you've been watching the live streams over on Twitch, nothing pisses me off more than getting trapped by a bunch of trash mobs in a corner and I cannot move. We're not using any mobility spells, so we're not using ether jump, so we can't just teleport away. This basically means that you can dodge through enemies. So every time you hit your space bar and you do a dodge roll, you can actually go through enemies. This is personal preference. You can put this point somewhere else if you don't care. But for me specifically, I cannot stand getting stuck on top of mobs or getting trapped in a corner or something, and then there's nothing I can do, and I have to cast my rotation right where I'm standing to kill everything to get out of that situation. So this is personal preference for me. This just means that you can actively dodge through enemies. And then we're going to come up here. Of course, we're going to get Witch Time Cannot Heal. We're going to get Dire Juncture, so we can't get one shot, even though you still actually can get one shot still, unfortunately. So this is still worth taking. And then we'll jump down here to the red. We are going to still take Bestial Frenzy because this is huge damage output. You're talking about 4% damage, which boosts to 5% damage. So you want to stand as close to those circles as you can. So when you're casting your anomaly and you're pulling everything into those circles, not only are those health globes going to explode, but you're also going to snag some of those health globes for yourself to keep yourself healed. But as well, now every enemy that within 2 meters of you, you're going to do 5% more damage per enemy. So all the damage just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking. It's absolutely insane. So like I said, anyone want a theory craft on a better path, let me know. Because now we're just taking, these points to get all the way over here. So we're grabbing these points. We're coming down to get the max willpower and rage, max willpower and rage, max willpower and rage, and then we're jumping right into our anchor. Anchor, we're using the heavy, which we'll get into the items next, but we're using heavy items on our helmet. We're not utilizing on the chest plate. We're only actually using the helmet because you need a unique chest plate to tie this build together. So you gain some resistance from that. And then, of course, we're coming over here and taking Fortress points as well. That increases your block chance. So this is, of course, the passives. I will leave a link down in the description to the offsite so you guys can see the build and everything. But I'm pretty comfortable with this and releasing this as being done. If any theory crafters want to try to tweak it to do more damage. Now, like I said, we did take this away. Originally, I was using this, and it is a significant boost. It's 60% element chance score. So, I mean, yes, it's nice, but to utilize this, we have to sacrifice stuff elsewhere. And where we're at right now, I like it. Everything ties together right now. Like, the only thing that you would be able to do is, if you didn't want this active dodge to go through the enemies, you could sacrifice this point right here. And then you can also sacrifice, like, the 2 meters or something. So it would only be 4 meters, right? The base is 4 meters. You can sacrifice that down. So if you didn't want the 2 meter radius and go with the base 4, so that'll give you 2 points. And then you could dump those 2 points into the element chance, which will increase your damage because, I mean, it'll increase. Like right now, we only have 20% chance of inflicting elements. That 60% will probably bump us up only to 25% overall. So the 5% differential, it's personal preference. This is still working. You'll see in the demo at the end of the video that I still crush everything. Like, it doesn't matter, to be honest. You could even sacrifice more HP or sacrifice some ferocity depending on your overall stat rolls on your gear, your Apex rolls. But, I mean, however you want to play to customize this to yourself, you definitely want to use this as the guide. This build and the passes that I've taken are what's working right now, at least. But like I said, you can make one slight adjustment if you want. If you don't want the active dodge roll, if you think you can manage grouping up, 30 mobs at one time and not getting stuck in a corner, well, then you're better than me. So congratulations. This just frustrates me that I can't already dodge through enemies. So we do have to sacrifice a point here for me specifically. But if you did want to take this out, take the 2 meter range out, so it's just 4 meter range, and then put those 2 points right here into that. That's completely up to you. So link in the description for everything you guys need to the third-party site to show you guys the build and everything. So we'll jump into the items here next. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at our items. Like I said, this is a very niche-related build, guys. You have to have one of these items mainly, which we didn't go over in the spell, so I'll go over it during the items here. But you have to have this trowel belt. The trowel belt is going to get nerfed eventually. It's only a matter of time. This is one of those items that people are actually paying real-life currency to buy this belt from other players on the live servers. That's how overpowered this belt is. I can definitely see them nerfing this, so you definitely want to have some fun with this build before it happens, because it'll probably get nerfed soon. And what this belt does is it gives you a 100% chance to inflict Mark of Impurity on an enemy when they are hit. So you don't even have to cast it. There's other items in the game that will let you cast Mark of Impurity, but this is a 100% chance to inflict it by hitting them. So it's huge. And so you don't have to slot Mark of Impunity. So if you look at your spells real quick and we go to it, this is the setup that you want to use for Mark of Impurity. So we're going to get marked enemies are more vulnerable to damage. Marked enemies are inflicted with curse. So this is our source of curse right here. It's a 100% and they get 10 curse stacks. We're going to use enemies killed under the effect, explode, and deal damage. So now we're doing even more explosive damage. It's just damage on top of damage on top of damage. And then finally, Mark of Impurity spreads to surrounding enemies. Well, I mean, you don't really need this one, but there's really nothing else you can take. I mean, I guess you can make them more vulnerable, even more, if you don't want to spread the curse. I mean, spreading it ideally doesn't matter because you have a 100% crit rate, so or 100% casting it on enemies when they get hit. So, I mean, theoretically, you don't really need this rune here, I don't think. You can actually even make enemies more vulnerable, and then that gives you one more point. So there's actually more vulnerable here. So this would be an actual better setup than using this, for the sheer fact that now you have more vulnerable to damage, more vulnerable to damage, more vulnerable to damage. Then you're cursing everything with 10 stacks at 100% ratio. And then again, exploding damage. So this would actually be a better setup, because you don't need this to spread, because you have 100%. Every time you hit something, it's already getting hit with it. So that's why this is so important. You have to have this belt. If you don't have this belt, you're not going to be able to push endgame content. This build and setup will probably let you still do about 163 content, but then you're still pushing it. 163 is still pretty hard. If you have this belt, you're going to breeze through everything. You're going to destroy everything. So unfortunately, we can't control the statistics on this belt. So whatever rolls you get on this belt, congratulations. But the main focus is that you definitely need this belt for the damage. Now, the secondary unique, we are using the Frost Weave. I wouldn't say that this is 100% necessary, but it's definitely nice to have. Basically, your freeze chance gets transformed into crit chance. So this is how we're able to get our high crit chance on our abilities while speccing into toughness to maintain our HP. So if I would take this off, for instance, and put a heavy piece of equipment on, so now my block chance automatically goes to 100, right? Because we have block efficiency and block chance. So yeah, your block chance and efficiency is going to go up, right? And then since we're using a heavy piece of gear, now my resistances go even higher. Now we're at 72, 71, and 70. And then if we cast our shout, they should go even up more. Well, I guess our shout didn't really do anything. Maybe a fraction of a percent on that. But the point is now our crit goes way down, right? Yeah, so now our critical chance is 27%. 40%. I guess I actually manually have to look at these because they're not telling me. So yeah, 24% compared to the 50+% that we were looking at. So that's a huge difference, guys. You want to hit that critical chance, right? So you can inflict your critical damage. So your 24%, we're losing almost 26% just from having that chest plate equipped, right? 24% chance. 25% chance. I mean, that's still decent, but you definitely want that high amount. So if you don't have this yet and you're striving to get it, you have to have the belt. But if you don't have this yet, this build will still work. It's going to kill a little slower, unfortunately, because now you're not going to have that crit chance available to you. And then once you get that, because what this does is it's taking your freeze chance. So currently I have a freeze chance of 29.4%. And all it's doing is taking that freeze chance and adding it to your crit chance. So now everything goes back up. So now we're at 53%. I don't know why these don't show in the tooltip. So 53%, 50%, 50%. So you can see why this chest plate in particular is important. Is it 100% needed? No. I mean, you're sacrificing because you can't slot these. You can't put gems in here. And you can't, re-roll these. So whatever statistics you roll on it, that's what you're getting. But the main thing is the bonus affix for the uniques. So we're taking that crit chance over the resistance. I mean, you're still pretty beastly. We're still at 63%, 61%, 58%. So that's why that's important. Now, as far as your other gear, you do need a heavy helmet, right? Heavy helmet is going to add to your overall resistance. You want a all resistance, very high roll on this. So, for instance, I have 581, which is pretty high. Your secondary, any kind of damage, occult damage is great. It has toughness on it, so we're increasing our HP. But your main focus on the helmet in particular is definitely to get the highest all-resistant base score you can get on this, because we're not utilizing the resistance from our chest plate, so we have to gain our anchor from the passive here. We're only using one, so instead of the chest, we're only relying on the helmet for this. So that's very important that you want to definitely roll the highest amount of all resist on your base rolls here. Now, if we branch off into the shoulders here, again, we're going resistance scores. So I have 279, 232, and then secondary affixes, or, I mean, whatever you get lucky with. I mean, you're looking for cost reduction, toughness, ferocity, wisdom. Unfortunately, I rolled agility on this, right? Like, I could actually make this even better. Like, it has 71 agility. That's garbage. We don't need agility. I could try to even, re-roll this to something better. Now, you can use bruiser items here, because bruiser items, like, for instance, we're using bruiser items on the gauntlets here. Bruiser items will give you not only resistance score, but they'll also give you HP. But I think the resistance scores are lower because they are split stats. So for my shoulders, I'm going with heavy. Now, again, everything is custom to the player that's playing. If you want to go bruiser shoulders to get the HP and resistance, that's fine. But you definitely want to try to maintain 60% at the lowest. So if you can still maintain 60% in all your resists, by using bruiser and getting additional HP while maintaining 60%, then you're golden. So, I mean, it all depends on what items you can accumulate and how many times you can re-roll those items to find what you're looking for. So these are my shoulders, if you want to pause it to look at what statistics I have. So this shoulder is actually better than this shoulder. This shoulder has toughness, right? This shoulder actually has base, or an affix of toughness, 80 toughness on this. It's giving me occult damage, resource generation, toughness, and then the resistance is important. So if I could roll this to have similar statistics, because the downfall of this piece is the agility. You don't need agility. That's a wasted affix point right there, basically. So since we were talking about the gloves, I am using the bruiser gloves, because the bruiser gloves will give you not only HP but resistance. So you want to basically try to get as high as you can. You want high HP, high resistance scores. All the affixes come secondary. So, for instance, I have Rage and Willpower, decrease resource generation, toughness on this one in particular. And then this one we have, again, Rage, Wisdom, and then Health and Resistance. I mean, the resistance on this is insane. 432 with 595 health. That's insane. So this one has more health but less resistance. This one has more resistance and less health. As far as the pants, again, you could go with heavy to get even more resistance score, or you could split the stats and use bruiser. I'm currently using bruiser. Again, I could re-roll this to try to maintain better statistics, because again, this has agility on it. You don't need agility. Anything that has agility on it, you don't want. So this item technically would need re-rolled to try to make it better. I kept it right now because it has 2,000 health on it and 100 resistance. You want to socket this with block chance. This is our source of that block that we need to get to 90%. If you didn't have these, if you had HP in here, for instance, you'd be able to boost your HP, but then this would go down to 80%. And then you would only be able to boost it to 90 with the buff. So right now we're going to 100% with our shout. This would only go to about 90% with our shout if we were socketing HP in here instead. The boots, again, same thing. You can use heavy or bruiser depending on how you want to do it. If you're trying to get resistance or you're trying to balance your HP, that's up to you. I just kept these boots because they have very high movement speed on it. They have ferocity. They have crit chance on it. And then again, it had 403 resistance, so I just took it for now, I guess. But again, this can still further be boosted slightly. You're not going to boost it to the point where it becomes way overpowered, but at the same time, you're still going to do everything you need to do. We're talking about min-maxing at this point. The main thing for the boots is the only piece of gear that you can have movement speed on, so you want to at least try to get balanced statistics on the affixes, but you still want to get that movement speed. These ones have, what, 33%? I think it actually goes up to 40% is the highest you can get, so not too bad. The weapon, we are using a sword, and I have Frost, Lightning. Now, there's a reason for this, and you have to do this setup. You need the frost damage to go for your frost chance, which we're getting our crit from. But you have to also socket one lightning gem in here, because we have no source of lightning. We need to socket one gem in here. Lightning damage on spells actually converts our tears to lightning. If you didn't have this, tears would be just burn only for some reason. But once you put that lightning in there, now we have a source of shock damage. Now, the rolls on the weapon don't typically matter too much. You want to gain as much damage from the weapon you can. You want to get high critical damage on this. Mine's actually low. My critical damage is only 19%. You want to get upwards of 30% on this. Whatever you get on this is fine. The gems are more important on this weapon than the affixes on the weapon. You can re-roll this to try to get more Aether damage, which I have right now, or any other damage type for that matter. Frost damage on here. You could play around with this and re-roll this as many times as you want, but you're definitely looking for the critical damage, which mine is a little low. Now, as far as the offhand, we are using a catalyst, and then you want the gems for transfer time. Now, I do have another block efficiency in here. That's completely up to you. If you want to re-roll this, you definitely need the transfer time. Alright? Because this is, as far as I've seen so far, this is the best transfer time in the game. You can't get less than 50%. Because remember, that is negative 50%, guys. Your offhand is not plus. I'm talking about the static baseline. It says 50% transfer time. That's negative 50%. So you want to at least have 2 transfer times in this item just to offset the negative effect on the item itself. So we have 25%, 25%. If you wanted to roll HP on this, then that's up to you. I mean, you don't need the block efficiency. The block efficiency is nice, but the block efficiency, how it scales in the game, unfortunately, having that, say we're at 24%, having this 10% is only going to knock this down to 22%, most likely. You're talking about a 2% difference. If you could roll this, I think you need defense 3, right? So you would need support 3, and defense 3 to slot another 1,000 HP in here, and then our HP would go up probably another 5k. So if you want to sit there and spend all your gold trying to roll this, that's up to you. But this was working for me right now. Now, as far as your affixes, you definitely want critical damage on this. 30% is the highest. And then, you're just looking for damage added to spells. So, for instance, we have fire damage and frost damage. Anything else you get on this, go for it. I mean, it's not really necessary. I have a couple bad ones here, like for instance the 41% duration to freeze. You can't freeze with this build, so I should technically re-roll this to get better affixes on here, and maybe I will down the road just to play with the build overall. As far as the accessories go, we have Steel Ring here, occult damage, willpower regeneration, HP, critical damage. You want to try to get as much critical damage off of these as you can, as well as slot it with transfer time. All your accessories are going to have transfer time. Because, like I said, you're offsetting transfer time here. So the 25 and 25%, the 50% is offsetting the negative 50%. So the only transfer time that I'm getting for gems is 75%. All 3 are slotted in your utilities. Because Unfortunately, you can't slot gems here. We could get another 25% here if we weren't using the belt. So you want to maximize this. This ring in particular had the base 25% critical damage. I would like to get more critical damage on this ring. It only has 18%, but I mean, it has other good rolls. It has occult damage, willpower regeneration, max health. So I just left it the way it is for right now. And then our other one over here has raw fire damage, occult damage, 30% critical damage, and then we actually got lucky and got the +2 element stack, so you're inflicting elements faster. The necklace, again, this necklace could be better. This necklace that I have is only +8 to all attributes. You would like something a little better here, to be honest. But the reason that we're keeping this necklace is because it not only it has the 30% crit damage, but it also has the +2 element stacks, so that's huge. Unfortunately, there's nothing else I can do about the bad affixes. I don't want to re-roll this because it has the 30% and the +2, but I mean, it has physical damage added to attacks. That's horrible for this build. So that's the items. They all tie together. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment below about that kind of stuff. So that's the items. We'll move right into the map demo, and then we will wrap up the video. Alright guys, and this will be the map demonstration. I'll put out a full video doing, you know, an expedition run, but for these small tests at the end of the video, I like to just toss a map in. So we'll do 187. We'll toss a map in here. Now, the bread and butter of this build, of course, is you want to get as many mobs as you want. So you don't want to pop these once. You want to pop them all at once. So make sure you spawn all the mobs. Make sure you're gathering everything up. We had some FPS lag right there. And then just go ahead and start your rotation. And everything should literally die at this point. Like, we're doing so much damage that I'm literally frame dropping. And everything should be dead. We got a couple of stragglers here. We've got the champions left. See, this build does struggle single target. We got an archer here as well. So, yeah, you can see that the damage will struggle single target, and this is why it's so important to gather as many mobs up as you can, because now we have one straggler here. And he's not gonna die, he's gonna take a little bit. All the damage comes from grouping as many mobs up as you can. Once we get him to 15%, he'll instantly die though, so he's almost there now. Just keep spamming him. And he should instantly die here. And there, he's dead. So we'll do another one, because that was really quick. So that's 187 content. We'll go ahead and top the map in. Make sure you spawn everything at once. That stuff just instantly dies, guys. It instantly dies. That was like less than, what, 30 seconds? So that is the map demonstration. Like I said, I'll upload a full run eventually. But you can see the damage potential of this. I mean, it's crazy. The amount of damage that you do actually sometimes freezes the game. The game can't even register how much damage you're doing, so it'll actually freeze. So let's go ahead and finish the video. Alright, so this concludes the video, guys. Hopefully I showed everything. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how you like this build. Everything you need to know is in the description. Make sure to join the Discord. The JSON file to this build will be in my Discord for anyone that wants to download the file and test this offline themselves, make tweaks to it, try to make this build even better, do some more theory crafting on it, whatever you want to do. And then you can let me know in my Discord how you've applied this build to the live servers and how well it is. I think this build is probably one of the strongest builds in the game at this point, now that Bleeding Edge is nerfed. I don't think anything's going to rival this at this point. I mean, the damage is insane. I told you guys I would show you an image. So at the bottom of your screen now, you can see the full potential of this. This was a level 187 Untainted run. I did actually die once, so I didn't get the S+. But look at the highest hit. This is the hardest hit that I've accomplished so far with this build. I'm trying to beat it. We were trying to beat it on stream live, and I couldn't beat it. But the highest hit, one single hit, was 44.8 million damage. That's absolutely insane. Every run that I've been doing has been anywhere between 20, 25 to 30 million a hit. I don't know what sparked such a high hit for 44.8. That's one single hit, guys. That's one hit. It's the highest hit, was 44.8. So if you can somehow make this build better, let me know. Join the Discord, grab the file, do the testing yourself, and then if you want to apply this to the live servers, like I said, I know this is very niche related. You have to have 2 of the unique items, and ultimately I can already see this getting nerfed, right? They're gonna nerf that belt. That belt is not going to be 100% ratio. They're probably going to nerf it to like 10%, and it's still going to be valid even at 10%. I mean, it's still going to be valid. It's just you're going to not be you know, killing as fast as we were with 100% ratio on it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it was probably another long video, but these guides and builds are really in depth. Hopefully you enjoyed the force field mage. Hopefully you enjoyed the exploding mage. I'm working on a few other builds as well that will be coming out, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like I said, join the Discord, get all the information you need. All the links are in the description for the third-party sites for the build and everything. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you share it with your friends. Exploding mage, man. I'm telling you, it's insane. It's insane damage. So, I'll see you guys in the next video.